It's a clicker. Good afternoon. We're excited to share with you today the not only one blockchain protocol. So NOOB is all about not only one blockchain. One thing I want to share today is there's going to be a lot of material here. We're not going to be able to get through all of it. We're not going to be able to explain all of what NOOB can do or what it can offer in this short presentation. But we'll take an attempt at giving you an overview and how it works and where we're going. We'll give you this introduction to how we formed NOOB, how it came to be, and the origins of it. We're going to describe some of the problems that we saw with blockchain and why we built the protocol from scratch. We're going to go through the architecture. So Kyriakos will share with you how we architected the protocol and what it's meant to solve. The mechanics and the technology and where we're planning to go in the future. So we designed NOOB from the ground up to be scalable, to solve some of the inherent problems we saw with blockchain, such as forks, 51% consensus, and some of the attacks you guys have seen over the last month or so, cryptocurrencies. We wanted it to be adaptable and extendable, so to be able to add other blockchains as we evolve the technology, or you guys to be able to build ones without affecting performance or the currency values potentially of your cryptocurrencies. The scalability was really important, and I'll get to that as to why we built this originally, and why scalability meant something very important for our core technology at Agingo. So the origins of this is years ago, I was working nights and weekends building Agingo while I ran innovation for a very large bank. And we were building this ranking algorithm that ranks sources of information by focus and trustworthiness. In other words, we want to give you control of what you saw online on the internet based on trust. So we created Agingo, and after I left Wells Fargo, I had a friend, Kyriakos, and when I left the bank, we decided to join together, and using his experience and knowledge and mine, we combined it together to build this new scalable, very secure blockchain that has utility and a lot more flexibility than what you see today. Kyriakos. Cool.
So where we started off of was with taking into consideration game theory, advanced levels of theoretical mathematics, certain philosophy, which I'm overly obsessed over, and then advanced time concepts in network theory. So the foundational elements, first, the blockchain is a combination of multiple blockchains. Each one is independent. Instead of trying to pack all of the information into one big one, we leveraged four with the initial release, with others on the way that are going to be integrated with it that add other functionality to it. The core of it is incorporated, and this has to do with optimization of networks. We added a trustworthiness metric at every layer of the protocols. And what ends up happening is that it becomes an overarching quantitative metric. And then finally, everything that we go through is working. This is a proof. We had the proof of concept March 30th. We are now ironing out and solidifying a lot of the code instead of just the slapping it together that we did for the proof of concept. So, like it says, everybody wonders what NOOB means. It's really just supposed to be funny. I didn't think that anybody would really want to actually call it NOOB, but it works. Not only one blockchain is the acronym, and it really isn't one blockchain. So the limitations in blockchain, which everybody in this room probably knows, and this is a pointless slide, but the performance limitations and the speed of transactions is almost the final question on a decision tree. If you're trying to see if blockchain's for you. If you're banking, if you're a financial payments processor or something like that, you need something in the thousands, where conventional technology still is going to be there. And then there's transactional constraints in the sense that, we're making digital currency, and you essentially can make whatever you want, and all we see now is just the mere equivalents to no different than a shilling, a drachma, a pound, or a yen. Why not add something? We can add something else to it, which is And then finally, scalability, which scalability is one of the hallmarks of what everybody's trying to achieve right now, whether it's EOS, Ethereum, or Bitcoin itself. So finally, the biggest misconception is that you don't need trust. It's trustless transactions. No, the transactions are actually what you have to trust. It's our belief that you remove the trust from actually having to trust the end state, the end person that you're giving money to or receiving money from. You can trust the network, and it's distributing and essentially decentralizing the trust. You don't get rid of it. So what we bring to offer and what we build is performance. It is fast, as it says up there, really fast. In our proof of concept, we were able to reach hundreds of thousand transactions per second. Mind you, this is still headless, so I don't even know what the UI and implications are going to be to that, but I wouldn't imagine it's going to be that big. The network size on that, the proof of concept was 100,000 wallets, and we scale and get faster as we go up. Securing trust. Each 4 blockchains actually have their own encryption, their own mechanisms, their own, it's called democratic focus, of protocol consensus, that they are all serving out their own, and by doing so they create 4 unique ledgers that combine to create the 5th logical ledger that is the NOOB ledger. Then finally, it is a scalable fabric. Not only does the speed of transactions increase, the complexity and security also increase as more people adopt. So it's almost, the more people on there, the more secure it gets. So the more assets that grow on the network, the more protected it will be. And then finally, it's a fixed ledger size. It's probably going to cause a million questions, but fixed ledger size, whatever the size of the mass of whatever's in the network is the size of the ledger. So theoretically, if we had 1,000 NOOBs, we would have a gigabyte of, or I'm sorry, less than that, a megabyte of data. And it's, so what NOOB brings to the party? So trust, the trustworthiness part, the relationship between trust and trustworthiness is actually not as complicated as some people made it. It's a semantic argument, but trust is something that each of us have uniquely, kind of like love or your personal preference almost. But your discernible in decision making is based off of a metric, which is trustworthiness. Is how many times before your friend doesn't pick you up from the airport before you stop trusting them to do it. So it's activity. So and then it's lastly scalable, which means now you can see unfettered growth. And then secure transaction complexity, which means it just gets better and better the more people that adopt. And then it's efficient, energy efficient, as in like ridiculously energy efficient. It doesn't use very much computational power whatsoever. And it's completely distributed. In worst case scenario, it's about 1 block per instance. This is where we were, let's see if we can do it, yeah. So time is a very hard subject, and it can make you go down weird paths, like watching Doctor Who. There's a lot of stuff. We read everything from Einstein to Rosen to, can't think of his name right now, but it actually came out to be a lot more simplistic than we thought. By harnessing the power of time within our network, we were able to do a lot of things that we do. Zero-knowledge proof is kind of a side effect of what all 4 of those blockchains are doing collectively. It creates a means of digital identity. And it provides a zero-knowledge proof in the sense that you can ask questions against it with the answer. Is this person this? Or does this person have a degree? Or, do they actually have the money to buy this thing? Or it can be the other way around. So what this does, though, is it allows dispassionate decision-making. Well, what I mean by that is that you don't need to know who's in the middle of a transaction if you're buying a soda, or if you're, buying anything, or if you want to check somebody's credibility, something along those lines. So the NOOB, so just for record, the colors didn't come out right, and it looks weird, but the language of noobish. Again, I took the word that I thought that nobody would like to the next level. So with noobish, it's a scripting language. It's not Turing, but because of what I'm going to get to next, You'll see why it doesn't need to be. It enables you to customize transactions and interactions natively through the wallet. You get to leverage the 3 transaction types that are native to the platform, and you're able to create, intelligent smart contracts while not having any loops. Trustworthiness is fluid. The way that we score metric, this isn't like the Chinese protocol where everybody's got their own score, and we want to, try to throw people into jail or anything like that, looking for bad people or anything. This is your personal. The best analogy would be you're actually in control of your own credit score. And it's quantitative, like I said. It has to do with the transaction types and then associated functions. Digital identity, this is a good starting point for where you're able to actually look at your personal identity and how you make and do things. And then it's all quantitative, the way that we do it, which I mentioned earlier. It's not just simple, like, did you do it, did you not do it? There's a lot more math behind it. All right, so the 3 transaction types. One of the big theories that we dug into was Mark Burgess, I forgot the other gentleman's name, and promise theory. And within that, it takes game mechanics to another level that kind of looks and studies the game. And if you were able to, instead of making a server fault tolerant system, you could actually make it to where if you incorporate forgiveness in the protocol, you're able to actually prioritize and optimize things natively. And with that, we were able to create 3 different games for the network, or transaction types, called participation, cooperation, and collaboration. So I made some funny animations. So you have a NOOB, and you can send a NOOB, which is participation. This is the same functionality that just moving assets. Cooperation is a bit more involved. It requires like an announcement. Let's say Netflix, I have videos and want your money, send me your money and I'll give you videos, which if this works, it should show that it is. And then there's finally collaborative. Collaborative is like, it's a good way, in a sentence you can say, I want to build a building, but if anybody's ever had to build any building, it can take thousands of people. So everybody comes to the table, they all strike up, they all become a locality of sorts, and as you can see in the animation, it took a long time. And they create an agreement, which is a collaborative agreement. This is done intrinsically within the actual wallet itself, and it's very simplistic to actually execute. All it requires is every participating party to agree upon the terms of the agreement. So we talked about transaction scalability. I don't know if y'all can see the numbers, but in our test, as we show the transactions per second, what's growing, the other metric, is the amount of nodes. And this just shows from 100, we're able to do 6 to the second, and as we go, it's everything's to the second, base 2, and that's the exponent that's represented on the chart. So with the top number is the number of wallets in February that had been downloaded for Bitcoin, and this is what our transaction volume 2 to the 23rd or 24th, right around, with latency incorporated into this model, and we're hundreds of thousands per second. Encryption, we use a very, very, very quantum-resistant encryption. Each chain actually has its own root keys that are always created and recreated. Transactional complexity, we introduced this. It is not something that I know that any other blockchain has. It's not just one thing to know the 2 end parties. There is no man in the middle. It's also the ability to actually know all the other moving parts underneath, which are completely encrypted traffic, to be able to try to get to them. And those are selected randomly based off of the trustworthiness. So zero knowledge, the security, you don't know who or what anything is unless you actually give up your identity. And even if you give them your identity, it's a fluid metric, so they don't know who you are if you don't want them to afterward. So we add the calculation of complexity for trying to do a brute force attack by adding encryption, transaction complexity, the mass of the network, and periods of time. And when you add that all together, it's the requirements for a successful brute force attack. So this is the base security encryption in a chart at the bottom. It starts with Bitcoin at 128. And this is all in regards to a birthday day attack, which if anybody's ever hacked or tried to do a brute force attack is a pain. These are the numbers that are widely available online. But for us, our testnet, and the funny number is 267. That's the amount of assumed protons in the universe. So it's just to show scale, and we're significantly higher. So scalable complexity, so including the encryption that's already pretty insurmountable, we add this transactional complexity, which at the bottom, the transaction complexity and the scalability of the transaction complexity, as it grows from 100, even with just 100 wallets online, we're already exponentially higher than where Bitcoin, Ethereum, or anybody else is sitting. So with governance, I'm going to give it back to Jacob.
So we built this scalable blockchain protocol so we could assess trustworthiness in the transactions, and specifically support the ranking algorithm we created for ranking websites on the internet, for ranking whatever it is, news. But to do that well, we need to know if we can trust you, so you can trust the websites you trust. And when we thought about this, we said, should a government own measuring trustworthiness? Should a for-profit company own the measurement of trustworthiness? And we didn't agree with that. So we formed a nonprofit. It's based in Washington, D.C., called the NOOB Institute. And we're giving control of the technology to the Institute. And it's basically keeping us in check. We license it to them. And we put that organization under a U.S. legal structure that is going to be fair to parties who want to participate in it, to assess trustworthiness, and to license the blockchain protocol. The governance, the Institute will manage governance, so helping eliminate fraud, setting policy within the blockchain, making sure that updates happen on the wallets within the blockchain. And in our case, we've decided that we're just not going to have transaction fees. Because if today in the real world with currency, if I give you $1, somebody doesn't rip off a piece of the dollar and then change the rest of it. That's more like a payment system or a credit card system. So we believe that cryptocurrency should not have transaction fees. The future of this, lots of applications. We don't know which one's the best ones yet. We have our own use case within Agingo, but we recognize that people are going to want to use this for other things. That can be useful in like control systems for the energy grid or intellectual property protection, like patents. You can put patents on the blockchain and license them through the blockchain in a more open way, where even users could get a license to the blockchain or to a specific patent. Journalism, news, you've heard about some big social media sites ranking news by trustworthiness to fix their fake news problems. And of course, financial services, banks are trying to figure out how does this fit into the world. With that, we plan to did a proof of concept demonstration at the end of March. Did a press release to announce what we had achieved with the blockchain. We're going to have a full featured version working by the end of the year. We're going to look for partners to work with, cryptocurrencies that want to build on the type of blockchain that we're providing, and then expect to launch the full public implementation of the blockchain crypto by first quarter of 2019. If you are interested in learning more, there's our email address. You can reach Kyriakos or I and the team, and we'd love to get back to you. So thank you very much.